All right, let's jump right in. We hear all the time about the absolute explosion in AI, right? But there's this huge question lurking in the background. How are we actually supposed to pay for all of it? Today, we're going to unpack a really cool new idea for how value can flow in the world of AI. It's called the royalty economy.
And that's really the heart of the matter. Building these powerful AI models, it's not a one-person show. You've got the developers, sure, but you also have tons of data contributors, people evaluating the models, folks fine-tuning them. So how in the world do you build a system that pays everyone what they're worth and keeps them all in the game?
Because here's the problem we're facing right now. The incentives they're often totally out of whack. Paying someone a one-time fee for their data doesn't make sense when that data helps create a model that generates value for years. This whole one-size-fits-all payment thing, it just doesn't cut it for how complex AI projects are today.
And that is where this idea of a royalty economy steps in. Now, the most important word on this slide is toolkit. This isn't some new, rigid law. Think of it more like a collection of different payment tools you can pick and choose from to match any situation, making sure value flows in a way that's fair and totally transparent.
So let's go ahead and open up this toolkit. First up, let's look at Mode 1, something called Pay As You Train.
The concept here is actually pretty simple, but it's also really powerful. Instead of one big upfront payment, every single time a piece of data gets used in training or every time an API gets called, it triggers a tiny little payout. It's all about small, constant streams of value.
Honestly, the best way to get your head around this is to think about streaming royalties in music, right? Every time you play a song on Spotify, the artist gets a fraction of a penny. This is the exact same idea, but for every bit and byte used to build and run an AI.
So how does this work in practice? Well, the payments happen in real time, either as the model is training or as it's being used. And what triggers the payment? Simple, metered usage. This makes it absolutely perfect for things like fine-tuning models or running lots of quick experiments. And that's really the main benefit. It creates this super low-friction way for developers to play around and innovate without needing a massive budget up front.
Okay, on to the next tool in our kit. This one flips the script a little bit. It's not just about usage, it's all about rewarding quality and actual results.
With this performance-linked mode, you don't get paid just for showing up. Nope, you get paid for success. Your payment is directly tied to hitting specific performance goals that everyone agrees on beforehand. If the data or model doesn't hit that quality bar, no payment. Simple as that. And this is a great way to think about it. It's basically a bonus for a job well done. You wouldn't give a sales team a bonus for missing their targets, right? This just applies that same common sense logic to the world of AI, which adds a whole lot of fairness and rigor to the process.
So with this one, payment only comes after the key performance indicators, the KPIs, are met. We're not talking about just usage here. The triggers are things like hitting a certain accuracy score or being below a certain response time. That's why it's so good for really high-stakes stuff, like safety evaluations, where you absolutely have to know the contributions are top-notch.
All right, that brings us to our third and, maybe the most innovative tool in the whole royalty economy toolkit, something called Train Now, Pay Later.
Now this is a real game changer, especially for people with big ideas but not so big budgets. It lets developers use data and models with zero cost up front. And in exchange, the people who provided that data get a piece of the pie if and only if the project actually starts making money down the road. It's a true shared risk, shared reward setup.
And that is its superpower. I mean, think about a startup or some wild experimental project. The upfront cost of getting good data can be a total deal breaker. Train Now, Pay Later just erases that barrier. It lets the innovation happen first, and you figure out how to share the rewards later, once there are actual rewards to share.
So the key here is that payments only get triggered after a monetization event, when the model or its API actually starts bringing in cash. Now, of course, this means the data contributor is taking on some risk. If the project fizzles out, they might not get anything. But it also makes them a real partner in the project's success. When the developer wins, the contributor wins too.
Okay, so let's zoom back out for a second and see how these three different modes, Pay As You Train, Performance Linked, and Train Now, Pay Later, all come together to create this really flexible and powerful system. You can really see how each mode has its own special purpose. It's all about having the right tool for the right job. You need to do a ton of quick experiments. Pay As You Train gives you those frictionless micro rewards. You need to guarantee top quality results for something critical. Performance Linked is the way to go. And if you're launching a risky new startup, Train Now, Pay Later lets you share the potential upside.
So, what does this all add up to? Well, the royalty economy isn't just a new way to move money around. It's about building a smarter system, one that gets the most out of our data, lets developers move fast, guarantees that contributors are treated fairly, and, maybe most importantly, creates a totally transparent flow of value from start to finish.
And that leaves us with one last really interesting question to chew on. This whole idea of a programmable, transparent economy, it sounds awesome, right? But to actually make it work, you need some kind of automated, trustworthy financial plumbing. This is where things like on-chain systems built on technologies like blockchain come into play. They could be the key to automatically managing all these complex royalty flows. So the real question is, what will those systems actually look like? Well, that's the next big thing to figure out.